I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me, and all my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
I want to mention that we did a really great little spiel on saving money on food earlier in the year. Christina talked about a no spend day and how to save money. No spend day. Okay, here's my challenge for you girls for one day. No, a no spend month on food, and then how to kind of stock your pantry, preparing for that. So that was a really great lesson, and that's on YouTube. Well, I was doing a little research on talking about thinking about how to save on food and sourcing good food, and I found some research on from Consumer Reports with some how they're always doing like the best grocery stores in America or what car to buy. Well, they did this on grocery shopping. It was Consumer Reports Grocery Store and Supermarket Buying Guide, and they did it in July of 2021. They found that post-COVID, there were a lot of shifts in the way that people buy food and the way that they, how often they prepare food. And so I thought it was interesting. I'm going to share that with you. Since 2020, 2/3 of all Americans now buy at least some groceries online. So I'm kind of curious, does anybody order any groceries online at all? Okay, all right, some do, some do. Also, what else increased was how many people order their food ahead and then pick up in the store. Does anyone do that? A few? And then there's curbside pickup. Does anyone order online and do curbside pickup? All of the above. You save money because there's no impulse buying. And usually those delivery or curbside pickups give you the best price available. So you still get the sale prices, but you don't spend all the money you just saved in that checkout line. So, and also delivery to home rose 150% between 2020 and 2021. So I was thinking about this because that was such a new thing in 2020. Hardly anyone had groceries delivered to home. Anybody here have groceries of some kind delivered besides Lori? I have participated in Imperfect Foods was a food delivery where you can get produce to come to your home. I did that for a while. But if you ever watch any of these old black and white movies, sitcom, I don't think they were sitcoms, I don't know. But they often had groceries delivered. You would see, I Love Lucy would have her grocery boy bring in her bag of groceries. So that's kind of something.
Always milk. Yeah.
And milk always delivered to the doorstep. You were married to a milkman, weren't you? Yeah. And your daughter looks just like the milkman. I'm just saying. Isn't really a new thing. It's just we had really gotten away from it as we became, I think, more urban, and we just could go out and find anything we needed anywhere. Other home delivery programs are like Instacart and even DoorDash will not just bring restaurant food, they'll bring groceries to you. And of course, Costco does home delivery as well. But a lot of those things changed in 2020. The whole landscape changed. People found that after the shelves went bare in 2020, that they needed to source their food a little bit differently. And so they looked towards the online delivery. Also, local stores, more local markets. I noticed that people were more likely to shop at, okay, maybe not Circle K, but maybe, if you couldn't get something someplace else and it was available in the neighborhood, sometimes it's not cost savings to drive all over to find things. And I think with the price of gas, which has been something that's really changed since that time, sometimes finding something in a neighborhood market can actually be cheaper than driving across town to go to a big box store. Also, people started using farmers markets more, finding local sources for eggs, for produce, milk. And if you live in a more rural area, you don't have to drive that far to find people who are homesteading has really increased since 2020, and people are raising meat and raising cows and chickens to be able to sell you that fresh produce. Also, big box stores like Costco. I actually use Costco more now than I did in 2020, just because, okay, toilet paper. There was the great toilet paper famine of 2020, and it's just an economical way to store something that isn't perishable, in the garage or whatever. There are markets like Thrive Market, which is a box to home delivery system, and Azure Standard, which is a place to source more organic bulk foods for people who have large families and they're really preparing a lot from scratch. And they're like a co-op used to be. I say used to be because back in my granola days, in the 70s and 80s, if you wanted organic foods, you had to go through a co-op. There wasn't a Sprouts or a Whole Foods Market. And so people would order together, buy in bulk, show up, separate the food, take the food home. And Azure Standard is one of those things. Also, I'm going to ask Lori just to talk a little bit about Butcher's Box, because this is not something that I really considered, but it's something that she does for her family, and she saves money doing that. So do you mind just sharing a little bit?
Okay, so Butcher Box is grass-fed meat delivered to your house. So I believe 6 cuts is like $169, and then 8 cuts would be $220. But they always run special. So when I first signed up, I got ground beef for life for free. So every box I get 2 things of ground beef with every order I get. And then I don't know how I did it, but I ended up with I have the free ground beef, I have the free drumsticks, I have free, I think it's I want to say it's bacon. Yeah, thanks, Dee. It's bacon, and then I think I have one more. And then this last year for $50, if I pay $50 up front, I'd get a thing of shrimp, wild caught shrimp, in my box every for a year for free. Well, I guess $50, but still it's cheaper than if I go to Sprouts and try to buy grass-fed beef. It's too expensive for me. And I did try to go vegan because it was so expensive, but my husband didn't like it. So I gotta buy good meat. So this is the best way for our family to do it. I mean, my dream is to buy a whole cow and then freeze it, but I'm not there yet. But yeah, it works out really good. And if you want, I can give you a reference code, and then I think we each get like 25 off. So, and you can pause it anytime. So sometimes, like if money's tight, I'll pause it, but I always will save my deals. Like the for life stuff is there forever. So and it's called Butcher Box.
Thank you.
And I have tried another one. I did not like them, so this is my second one.
We'll get Angie to put that up in the next newsletter. You guys will have.
Yeah, I think if I recall, you also got salmon.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that right?
you can get wild caught salmon.
So it's just, I mean, if you go to the grocery store, actually, I went to the grocery store last night just to buy lunch meat. And everything at the deli counter was like $12 a pound. And so sometimes it seems expensive to pay $160 or $200 a month up front for meat. But if you've got a large family or you're feeding men, several men, like Laura does, then I think really in the long run, it seems like it would be a really good value. And it's not just about value, it's about quality too, because the nutritional value of our foods has kind of washed out over time. So if you can buy, organic, grass-fed, locally grown meat, produce, it can be, value over just dollars per pound sometimes is what you really need to look for. Survey says, how often do you go to the store? 35% of people go to the store less often. They have done less quick trips. It's like something when the landscape changed and there wasn't always food readily available, what you wanted on the shelves. You bought what you needed, you bought a little more, and you just didn't go as often. And so that changed. And more people moved towards store brand foods, generic, we would have maybe called them, or private labels, maybe more like what Lori has done. And in July of 2021, they made a prediction that grocery prices in the next year or so would rise. Are you ready? 2 to 3%. Do you think groceries have risen 2 to 3%? I actually think it's more like 20 or 30. And let me tell you how I gauged that. So David, my husband and I were talking about this morning. I used to go to the 99-cent only store regularly for food. So that would be my first stop. I go and say, okay, it's like a treasure hunt. What do they have? They have Hunt's tomato sauce, and they have lettuce 3 for $1, and they have half and half for $1.49, or and I would kind of get what I needed from there, and then I'd go to like the real store for the other stuff. Well, during 2020, those prices started climbing, and the sourcing, what they could get on their shelves, went down. And then of course, everything at Dollar Tree went to $1.25. Everything at 99 only went to $1.99. And the truth is, I was observing that the shopping resources for probably the lowest SES, the lowest socioeconomic population, had gone up at least 25%, because there are people in neighborhoods where those stores are situated where that is really their go-to for groceries. And if they've got to pay 25% more, inflation was hitting the people who needed the break the most. And the truth is, I can hardly afford to shop at the 99-cent only store because I can get better deals somewhere else. Christina?
Just a quick reference. So my family eats a lot of eggs, and I would buy the 60 pack of eggs for $8.69. They are now $30.
Yes. So, we can say, 10 to 15%, 25%. In some cases, it's 50 or 100% increase in groceries. I think any place that we can save will help. people said that 49% or half of all Americans were now cooking at home way more than going out. And have you, for those of you who do eat out, have you noticed the rise in meals when you go out to eat? It's and or smaller portions. It used to go to Olive Garden, you know, you took half your meal home, and then you took one to go for $5 if you know, wanted fettuccine Alfredo or something. But it's just really, things have changed. And when it came to stores who ranked high in, you know, customer satisfaction, cleanliness was the #1 factor, even over price. And I think that's a takeaway from COVID as well. And do you know who was like at the top of the list in both cleanliness and cost? Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's, clean stores. And that was going to be one of my suggestions for people who don't shop at Trader Joe's. Like a lot of things are just, they're packaged because they're maybe frozen or their meat is prepackaged. It's not like a bulk store, but overall the value is good, the quality is good, and the prices have not significantly changed. They may have been a little higher than average in 2020, but they're right in there with the competition. So keep that in mind. Also at the top, Costco, Winco,
Yay. Sorry.
Aldi is kind of new in the valley. And you know who ranks towards the bottom? Walmart.
Oh, yes.
And so that's interesting. So ways to strategize before you shop to save money. Take advantage of loyalty programs. If you have to have a membership, that may be a good thing. Track prices of common purchases. And there's something that the Tightwad Gazette, which is a group that I belong to, does. They make a price book. And this was more old school. You wouldn't necessarily do this, but they would, you know, when prices didn't change for 6 months, it was easy. Now it's like, you know, spin the dial and let's see where it lands. And that's what you pay. But if you shop online and you go, okay, what's the best price on flour? What's the best price on oats? What's the best price on milk? In general, not just sales prices, but overall, and you keep track of that. I will tell you, I've done a little bit of that myself. Walmart pretty much wins. They're comparable with like Aldi when it comes to just per item costs. They're almost always a little less for regular price. Also make a list so you don't impulse buy. Compare your paper ads. Look and see what's on sale and plan your menu based on what's on sale. Go with store brands. You'll save 20 to 25% if you buy a store brand. I went in to buy flour. I actually have bulk flour, but I was baking and I wanted it to be like super fresh flour. So a couple months ago, I bought King Arthur flour, which is like supposed to be like gold standard. And I think I splurged and paid about $5 for a 5 pound. And I didn't buy it. I went in to buy it at Safeway. It was $8.99 on sale, normally $9.99, $10 for a 5 pound. So I bought the store brand, unbleached, flour for, I think, about $4.99. So that was a 50% savings. And then again, just beware of bump out end caps, and the end caps aren't always on sale. The bump outs where they try to get your attention, they're not always a good deal. Sometimes they're the worst deal, but they make them look really attractive. So those are suggestions for like in the store. I want to talk to you just about a couple of local places to save some money. This is primarily produce, and it's budget produce, I'm calling it, or rescued produce. And Market on the Move has a warehouse at 17th Avenue and Union Hills. And they have other locations at different times of the year, at different churches, etc. They, for a $10 donation, you can get boxes of produce, sometimes cases of produce. They're not always, I find, reliable if you're not there waiting in line. Like, we went yesterday and most of the stuff on the list didn't make it into my car and they substituted. But I still ended up getting several heads of lettuce, a couple heads of cabbage. I got some Gatorade. I got a case of Starbucks Nitro. There was supposed to be, I got a half a case of bananas. There was supposed to be like a quarter case of tomatoes, and that didn't make it because I was late. But so you have to be pretty flexible. But there are times when I've gotten cases, like a case of lettuce, a case of tomato, a case of bananas for $10, a $10 donation. So that's something I kind of keep track of. I watch them on Facebook. If you don't do Facebook, they do have a website, but they do have a Facebook Live where they'll tell you what the varieties are going to be. Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, they provide this opportunity. Another one is Borderlands Produce Rescue, and they have varieties of locations all over the valley. I mean, up north, Chandler, Gilbert, Scottsdale, downtown Phoenix, Glendale, and their donation is $15, and it's much the same thing. You probably won't get cases, but you're going to get a really good selection. Now, for those of you who do like to, for you preppers, if you can, if you freeze, if you dehydrate, if you have other ways that you put food back, this is a great, inexpensive way to do it. I've gotten, blueberries and made blueberry jam. I've gotten, I make tomato sauce. If you have a little bit of time and energy to do that, this is a great way to have whole, real foods for your family. And many times the produce is organic. So Borderlands, another great place. Because it's rescued, sometimes you're going to get a little past its prime. So you kind of have to be prepared to act quickly. You might have to core pineapples and, or freeze lemons or do something. And that's, you have a website there. And the other one is everybody'sfamilyfruit.com. And Lorraine actually told me about this. It is also called Garcia's Family Produce. You can go online at this website and you can order, kind of see what they have and when they're open. And so they just have bulk prices, 10 pounds of potatoes, a case of green peppers, whatever you're looking for. They'll tell you what they have available and what the price is. They also do eggs and other items, milk. But they also offer a combo box, and they put those out a couple times a week usually. And then you see a picture of exactly what's going to be in that box. I will say, even at $30, it's not cases for 10, but maybe you can't use a case of something. For $30, you might get a dozen eggs and maybe a dozen tomatoes and just fruit, vegetables, whatever they have available. And that is 89th Avenue and Windsor Drive, which is kind of southwest. It'd be worth the drive to fit it into your swoop to do that. So that's really, if you're looking for really fresh, organic You know, it's not always organic, but I don't know if Garcia's is, but it's farm to table. Let's just say it's really a farm to table. Another little thing about Market on the Move, the first one I talked about, often there are other things that are not food. You might get lots of beverages, hygiene kits. You know, a lot of what they get all of these donations from all over the valley, and then they pass them on to their customers. You know, the first time I went to Market on the Move, I'm cruising in behind a Mercedes. I'm like, okay. You know, so it's really a way for people to save food from waste, for a way for people to get great healthy foods locally. Market on the Move does go year round. Maybe not every location, but the main warehouse is open year round. All right. Well, I hope you are excited about rolling up your sleeves and cooking and spending less to be able to do that.
Statistics. The answer you talk about baking, which is not exactly, it's something I've started doing in the more recent years. I get most of my recipes through Pinterest. Pinterest in the last several years, bless you, has allowed people to give opinions and make comments and like things. So that really helps me in finding recipes, because then I don't have to wonder if this works or if this doesn't. I can see how many people like something, and then I know obviously that is something that works well. So I use that a lot, almost the majority. I find like baking magazines don't always have the most accurate. Though they're magazines, I'm not sure anyone's made the recipe in the magazine before they printed it sometimes. So they're not always the most accurate, but I like Pinterest because I can see people's opinions and how many people like this or that. And I use it for cooking as well, not just baking. And then you have to be careful when you use Pinterest, because sometimes they're just videos only, and those are very frustrating. You're like, oh, this looks really good. And then you put it on your menu and you realize that there's no written direction. And you have to either write it down yourself or you have to, watch it like pause, play, rewind. Many times. So just check. And sometimes, like if you like on Pinterest, if you click on it, it will send you to the person's website and then you can print it. Again, sometimes it's just videos, or sometimes they put the directions in the comments below and not on a separate page. So if you just look, but if it has to do with like TikTok or something, often they're just videos and they're fabulous, but they get really frustrated. And then the other thing I would beware is Pinterest is open to the whole world. So sometimes you get people from other countries that are baking and you have to do some conversion. You know, like they don't always cross over exactly correct. They often round, so it doesn't always equal out. I have this recipe, I got it out, and I used Pinterest. It was a coffee cake cookie. And I was like, okay, this looks like I bake at night, so I do not eat what I bake. There's no licking or tasting, because I do not eat after a certain time. So if I bake after that time, I'm not tempted to try, which is detrimental to y'all, because no one has tried it. But often I get my husband. So I got it had the comments and it listed all the ingredients, but there were no directions. And sometimes I can figure that out. Most things bake at 350. For a certain amount of time, I can kind of figure that out. But this had like multiple steps. And it did not have directions, and it had multiple steps. So like I just, after 10 minutes of trying to figure out what this person was asking me to do on this video, rewind, play, pause, I said, forget this. And long story short, and now I baked something I had made before. And so it's snickerdoodle with cream cheese frosting.
Everybody stay seated. So be there when we finish.
Besides, likes
Yeah.
and, American measurements, what other things, criteria do you look for when you're choosing
Okay,
a
so
recipe?
what I choose, if I need to know who I'm making it for.
Okay,
So if I'm making it for something to go to my parents' house, I know my mom likes things with lemon, so I'll look for recipes that have lemon, include a lemon base. Or if I'm going to my in-laws, I know that they like more sugar-based things, and I will make something that is more on that end and less on the less sugar end. So like I said, I just have to know my clientele. If I know someone likes something, then I will look for something like that. I enjoy cookies, but I like to make bars. I don't do a lot with cake because I like to be as frugal as I can. I find that when you branch out in baking, they require a variety of different flours. And then you just have things stored for a long time that you don't use. It costs more and things can be kind of finicky. So like cake or bread require different types of flour. And I like the the cheap store brand that's been sitting probably on the shelf for 10 months, but that's what I use. So I try to do it with ingredients that I know that are not as ridiculously expensive. That's also a criteria that I use. Or something that I can have on. I can always keep a box of brownie mix in the house. Just because, and if something needs to be done quickly, there's no point in making your own brownies. Oh, there's just, don't even do it. Like a brownie mix box is like $2. And you can't. So, or you can always add something to a box. So whatever.
Thank you, Julia.
They asked me to give a little presentation on table decorating, and I'll be honest, I just kind of looked around the house last night and I threw this together, and I hope all of you are blessed by some of my ideas. But when I decorate, I usually decorate very simple. The one thing I want to stress is how pretty you can make your home, your table look without spending a lot of money. I wanted to start with talking about tabletops, and I really like this idea of you don't always need to get a tablecloth or have a tablecloth. Sometimes they can be really expensive. You all know I'm a big thrift store shopper, so I either will look at Hobby Lobby. This one happens to come from Hobby Lobby, but most of my tablecloths come from the thrift store. And lately I have found some phenomenal, really pretty spring ones, summer ones that are very inexpensive. But this is just a quilt. This is just a quilt, and you can put that on a table, make that look really pretty. And this is just a blanket, just a really cute little blanket. And you can put whatever your table decorations are on top of that blanket and have your blanket be your tablecloth. And you're saving a lot of money by doing that. So I wanted to talk about that. And this, so I change this out every season. I put a different ribbon on. So this was just a little presentation on using ribbon. And ribbon, you can accessorize and do so much with it and make it look a little pretty, and you're not spending all the money. I like to go to the store sometimes because I don't think I'm very creative. And I'll look at something and I'll look at it and I'll think, that's too expensive. And so I'll take a picture of it. I'll take a picture of what I'm interested in maybe buying, but I don't want to buy it because it's too expensive. And then I'll go home and I'll try to figure out how I can make it without spending all that money. And a lot of times it's just a container, maybe it's ribbon, and maybe it's some type of flowers or something that's in it. I love pillows, but they're so hard to store. So these are actually little slip covers. And I bought these. I did buy these at the thrift store, but Hobby Lobby also has them too. I'm thinking maybe Home Goods would have them too.
I bet they're easy to make.
Yes, you probably could make them, but these are just fun. And I love these because you can just take the pillow out, fold this, and then they're easy to store. So
a little stand, and you can add candles. Or if you don't want candles, you can put cookies or little appetizers on here. And then I love lights. I love to use lights. All these lights I purchased at the dollar store this spring, and then I just added the lights here.
Now, I wanted to talk for a minute about wreaths out here. So this is my wreath, and I've had this for quite a few years, but they're so durable that you can mutilate it to death and just kind of go like this, first bring it back and it comes back to life. But it's just fun to think of. I'm really downsizing big time. So in my decorating, like I'm always thinking, okay, what else can I use this for besides just a door, just to hang on the door? So let's say you're having a spring, summer party or a Christmas party. You can do that with Christmas wreaths. You take a wreath, and I couldn't find a bigger punch bowl. I don't have a punch bowl. So it's just imagine this as a big punch bowl, but you put that in the middle and you have your cute little, and it's so simple. You could serve your punch in there. You could serve a nice little appetizer or food in there, do whatever. So it's just kind of fun by doing something that's simple, pretty is so amazing because there's just not a lot of money and the presentation is still there and it looks dynamite. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, I'm big ribbon person for so many different things. I mean, you can do a lot with it. So that's pretty quick. Well, hopefully it's just, I wanted to make it simple and make it pretty. So your head isn't spinning and you're thinking, I can't do this, because you can. Everybody has that capability and that you can do it. Just start simple and just think of that's why I pulled the wreath out so you could see it was just a simple bowl. And you think, okay, you have a bowl in your house, a really pretty bowl. Well, how can I make that presentation look prettier? So you put a wreath, or maybe garlands, like you can get the garlands with all the pretty flowers on them. You can get those at different places, really inexpensive too. And then you could just wrap that garland around that bowl and have it look pretty too. I love using candles. I use a lot of tea lights on my table when I entertain, because again, it's such a pretty, simple way for your table to look pretty, and you haven't spent a lot of money. So I hope you've all enjoyed it.
Thank you. I wanted to say, first of all, how many do you live in a house full of men, don't you? Do you have a daughter?
I do have
Okay. Because sometimes you think things are lost on the guys, In my house, I have a butter churn that Rosie bought. And I got in the habit a long time ago of each season putting fresh flowers. Not fresh, but fresh artificial flowers. Artificial flowers. So my youngest daughter brought her now husband, but boyfriend over and whole count goes, I love the way your mom decorates. Will you be sure and do that for our house? So every season that I change that, I send him a picture. It's not, and he's he just became a fireman. He's a big old dude. You don't think anybody's paying attention, but those things matter. Good job, Colleen. I'm tired of sitting. But I just wanted to say, do you guys know what it means when someone says you can't put lipstick on a pig? No. Do you know what that means? It means if something's kind of ugly on the inside, you can't make it pretty by just putting lipstick. So we can set the table and we can have all the good food, but I just want to encourage y'all to teach your kids, especially, and your grandkids, manners. And so this is a little sweet book. I imagine you can find it on Amazon for almost nothing. It's a book of courtesy written by a group of nuns. And I've always loved this little book. And first of all, take the pressure off. Everybody is so crazy busy, right? And I'm not saying do this every night, but I'm saying make it a habit, so maybe it's a Sunday night dinner. Maybe it's even just a once a month Sunday night dinner. But take the time to sit down at the table and teach your kids how to enjoy a meal with other people. And there's an art to that, right? Yes. And it's an act of courtesy to be able to eat with other people in a way that's a good experience for everybody, right? So I just had some quick tips. First of all, so if you're going to do this, right, you're going to sit tonight, guys, we're going to sit at the table and we are going to serve food. So first of all, it means you come and your hair is combed, right? You have on a clean shirt. Your hands are clean and washed, right? It's not an option, guys. Okay, if we're doing this, we're gonna do it right. So we're gonna do these things. You're gonna show up at the table on time. And then, you're gonna set the table, you're gonna have the table set. Now, maybe they've never really seen a set table, right? So maybe you've had to spend a little time going on Pinterest. Maybe they help you set the table. One of the ways I taught my kids to do this, I didn't think about this till later when they, and I did it for the youngest girls, but during the summer, we had about 8 or 10 kids, girls over, and we would have a meal together. And sometimes we did several meals. So maybe one time was spaghetti, and maybe one time was soup, and another time was meat and salad. So they had to learn how to use their utensils. But this may not seem like a big deal, but when they are invited to go out someplace, or they're interviewing for a job, or they're meeting someone's family, these things are important. So make sure, make it fun. And you know what? You're not going to learn it in a day. And every time it's going to get better, right? And reward them for the things that they do right. So anyway, this little book makes things very concise. Just 5 pages of this book is on eating together. But do they know when to pick up the napkin? Do you know not to pick up your napkin until the host does? Do you know not to put the first bite in your mouth until everyone has their plate served? And maybe that family says grace, you wait till after grace. Those kinds of things. Do they know how to, I have 2 forks, what am I supposed to do with those, right? Do they know to start with the one on the outside and then work their way in? So all those little things are just really helpful. And then another thing is, what is our conversation supposed to be? So we're working on the manners a little at a time, right? We're not going to try to make this a miserable experience. You don't want to turn them off. But then we're going to set some guidelines. And where are the cell phones going to be? In a basket, in the other room, turned off, not coming to the table. So we're going to put down some guidelines, We're going to look at each other and talk to each other. We're not going to argue. This is not a place to bring up family drama. We're not going to even talk politics. The portion of our meal where we are eating is going to be pleasant conversation, and we're going to work on that. Several ideas. Focus on the Family has an app where it has just questions to ask each other. My daughter, Carol, I was just with her last week, and she had a little deck of cards she keeps in her purse. And it was, I'll put it in we'll make a little resource guide. I've forgotten the name of it, but you just pull out the cards and it gives you something to talk about, What's your favorite memory about this? Or what did you always want to be? Or what's on your bucket list? Just things to give you, to create pleasant conversation. Somebody gave me these one day. It's called Table Topic for Family. What fear would you like to conquer? There. So just things to talk about. We talk about verse memory. This is that little dwell program I was telling you about. Maybe you use that time to discuss a verse that just came. What does that verse mean? So there's all kinds of things you can talk about that don't involve drama. You don't want to get people's digestion on with them. Right? Carol gave me another suggestion. You've heard talk about, what's the high and low of your day? And you go around the table and let everybody share. Here's a new one for you. Rose is something good that happened. Bud, so it's all about the flower. So it's the rose, the full rose, and then it's the bud. The bud would be something you're looking forward to. And then the thorn, something that kind of wasn't great. It's not a time to go deep into that, but then you kind of get to know what's going on in each other's lives and you can talk about it. So those are just some kind of things to think about. And then we don't get up from the table till everyone's done, right? So those are some things. So you'll have to pick out what's important to your family. We don't want to torture anybody, but I just think it's really, it's an art. Things like, even some of the harder things like, we don't chew with our mouth open. We don't stuff our face full of food. We eat at a pace where it's enjoyable, right? Who knows how to get rid of something in your mouth? Like you just bit into a piece of meat and there's a hard piece of gristle. You don't have to swallow that. Do you know how to get it? How to dispose of that? Actually, that's what I've always done. But technically, by the manner gurus, you put your fork or spoon back in your mouth, put it on there, and then set it on your plate. I actually like the napkin thing better, but that is. But I think they think maybe it makes a less of a, it's less intrusive if you just put it back. But anyway, teach them how to do that. And then when you're done, you know, what do you do with your napkin? You make sure you set it back. You're not supposed to tip your chair back. You know that business of tipping your chair back all the time? Boys love to do that, especially teenage boys. They can go without tipping their chair for a half hour.
Right.
No elbows on the table, right? So I think if you kind of maybe talk through it first, and also know that, you know, you're not gonna be able to teach this to a toddler, of course, but to the ability that they're able to, I think it's a good thing. And if you wait really long, it's gonna really be a challenge. So make it just part of your life. Yeah, so Rochelle was saying that she was at a job interview, and when they finished eating, she pushed her chair in. And then when she got the job, she asked, why did I get the job? And they said, because you have manners. So, you know, sometimes it's those fine-tuned things. I know, you know, when we hire someone at our company, sometimes it's really close, and you're looking for those fine things, those little finer details that show someone knows how to respect other people. And the eating table is one of those places where it really shows up. Do I care about you? Do I care about, you know, it's not about being prissy or having errors or anything like that. It's just about showing others that you care, you know, and you want them to have an enjoyable experience too by controlling yours. So, all righty. Anybody else? Joan has one.
Also, you know.
Oh, yes. Joan said to be sure that you thank the host, you know, for the food. Thank you for that. And on that same vein, you know, a lot of kids are picky eaters. And they, you know, when something comes by, they go, just pass the bowl, right? Teach them how to pass, you know, and you don't want to have an empty plate. So find something you do like and put it on there, but you don't have to eat everything, but you do have to keep your mouth shut. And the other thing is you would never teach them never to salt and pepper before they even taste it. That's an insult to the cook. You taste it first, and if you need a little extra salt, that's okay. And when you pass the salt and pepper, it always goes together. Pass the salt and pepper. Right. Somebody else.
I was just gonna say, growing up, I'm from a large family, and we were raised, you always kiss mom, and when you told her thank you.
Oh, Colleen says you kiss mom too, and tell her thank you.
Mom, and you gave her a kiss.
Yeah. That's awesome. We're right. Yeah. Anybody else have some good tips? Audrey has one.
I always use, like, if you have a about it, I use a, when I don't go to round things and sit on the table, but everything on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so lazy Susans are nice in the middle of the table, but I would say, and that's great for every day, but if you're practicing for the manners thing, you're not gonna go out to a restaurant generally and find a lazy Susan, so be sure. Which teach them. Yeah, I love those too. I have ones. Anybody else? All righty, ladies. Well, we're going to take a break, and we're going to say goodbye to our Zoom ladies, and thanks for joining us. And we have lots of good food in here. Now that I've intimidated you, I won't be watching you eat. There'll be no